So you and I spend tens of billions of dollars to develop drugs. Then our government gives those drugs to pharmaceutical companies. Then the pharmaceutical companies mark them up, say it costs $1, they mark it up to $50 and hit us. They literally mark them up 50-fold to rip us off for the drugs that we developed. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. A riff on monopolies here tomorrow night at Town Hall Seattle. A new book out, The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream. And along similar lines, it seems, Alexander Zaitchik has a brilliant piece up over at the New Republic. It's titled How to Break a Big Pharma Monopoly on COVID-19 Vaccine. Alexander, his website is Zaitchik.com, ZAITCHIK.com. He's also the author of The Gilded Rage, A Wild Ride Through Donald Trump's America. Alexander, welcome back to the program. It's great talking with you. How do we, well, first of all, before we get to the vaccine, let's start with Remdesivir. Give me the story of this drug that seems to have a small but measurable effect on very, very sick people with coronavirus. Where did it come from? How was it developed? Who paid for that? What are they charging for it? Who's making money on it?
Right. Well, it's a long story that involves a lot of different layers of investment, beginning with basic research funded by the National Institutes of Health into the
That's
field.
You and me.
Yeah, it's you and me and everyone listening. Exactly. Billions of dollars went into the general area that Remdesivir represents, which is an antiviral targeting certain RNA proteins. And that research allowed two researchers with Gilead Sciences, which is a major pharmaceutical company based in California, to quote unquote invent this molecule, which they were originally hoping would have activity against Ebola. And it was shelved when that proved not to be the case. It was later rediscovered during a scan of Gilead's molecular library, they call it, by the Centers for Disease Control, who thought that it could have activity against things like coronaviruses, which it turns out, with some asterisks, that it appears to have activity against people with severe COVID. But the trials that led to this discovery and its eventual fast-track authorization by the FDA was completely paid for almost by government and military agencies. So you have...
Okay, so let me just get this straight, Alexander.
Yeah.
So we paid for the raw research that led to this category of drugs. We paid for the specific research that led to this particular drug. We paid for the safety and efficacy studies on this drug. So the manufacturer now, how did they get exclusive right to manufacture this? And what does it cost to make? And what are they going to charge us for it?
They have a markup right now. There's different tiers that they're charging, but basically they marked up 50 times the cost of manufacture in a pandemic.
Whoa.
Unconscionable. And the reason this is allowed to happen is a loophole in the law. We have legalized monopoly in the form of patents, which we allow to take place even in the field of medicine, which there's a good argument that you should not have monopoly control of medicines when you can drive up the price, especially in a public health emergency like we have right now. But there's also a mechanism within the law for the government to override those legal monopolies. And that was what I was getting at with my article, which is basically a contribution to a chorus of voices that are coming out now saying, let's use that power, that override power, which is written very explicitly into the law for crises like this. So
rather than doing it the stupid way, like we did with Remdesivir, that costs us a fortune and makes 50 times, that's mind-boggling. You walk into a store and buy anything, you buy a $20 shovel and maybe it costs $3 to manufacture. That's not a 50-time markup, right? From manufacturer to wholesale, from wholesale to retail. It's like, that's mind-boggling. 50 friggin' times.
Have been compared to printing presses for money. That's basically what they are. Because it's an inelastic market.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are going to pay hospitals.
So how do we do this with the vaccine? We've got two major vaccine candidates that look like they're probably going to be the ones that are going to be rolled out just in time for the election, and then there's I guess a couple dozen others that are in development just in the United States. How much are we paying for all this, and who's going to own these, and what do we do about this?
Well, through BARDA, the U.S. government has contributed, I think, upwards of $10 billion at this point for the various vaccine research programs. That's the Pentagon agency that funds biomedical research. And they've put billions into these vaccine candidates. And the markup won't be quite as high for vaccines, but we don't know because there's no transparency with these companies, even though they're using government funds. And there's also no price controls. The government is not asking them to make promises beyond vague assurances that the price will be reasonable. But they've quoted numbers, I think $37 a shot. You know, there's still considerable markups. And there's a very good argument that they should be, zero markups with the vaccine, again, during a public health emergency like this.
Right. During World War II, Franklin Roosevelt, when he put Harry Truman in charge of ferreting out waste and fraud in military contracting, gave a public speech in which he said, there will be not one new millionaire made as a result of this war. And Trump is going, hey, we've got a war against a virus. We can make lots of millionaires. I mean, how unusual is the technique, the strategy that they are pursuing right now compared to the way it's normally done? Or is this, do we just get routinely ripped off by pretty much every drug that comes to market?
Yeah, the pharmaceutical industry is acting the way it always acts right now. It's just an opportunity for us to sort of really pay attention to it because it's under the light of this pandemic. And there's so much attention being paid to the quote unquote race for a vaccine and other treatments and diagnostics around COVID-19. But this is what they do. It's what we allow them to do. It's what they're rewarded for doing. It's what we've refused to try and stop with our democratic system that they have a lock on. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry spends more in Washington than any other industry, and it has paid off for them. We have tools in U.S. law that can put a check on their power and increase access and equity to medicines for the taxpayers who are paying to develop them. We just don't use them.
We're talking with Alexander Zaitchik. He's the author of The Gilded Rage, Guide Through Donald Trump's America, and most recently, a great piece over at the New Republic, How to Break a Big Pharma Monopoly on a COVID-19 Vaccine. Alexander, just to wrap this up, we just have a couple minutes. What can we do about this? If I was to call my elected officials, what would I say? Or is that even the appropriate pressure point? What's it going to take for the American people to stop getting ripped off by this insanely profitable industry that spends more to bribe politicians than any other industry in America?
It's a big question, but on this particular issue, it's an executive decision. And generally speaking, this is going to require a new executive approach to the industry because all of the main tools for addressing this come from Health and Human Services, and then beyond that, the White House. We need people at HHS, which controls the NIH system, to enforce public interest mechanisms for public control over the drugs which result from government-funded research, which is almost all the drugs. There's research coming out lately showing exactly how dependent the industry is on $43 billion a year distributed by NIH. Without that money, they don't exist. The drugs don't exist.
It's our money, yeah. But if HHS is in charge of this, that's Alex Azar. He used to be the CEO of Eli Lilly, and when he was the CEO, he doubled the price of insulin, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think we can expect much under this current administration. However, it's never too early to start building pressure and awareness around this issue for future administrations. And I think there's already a lot of anger in this country. Drug prices are routinely at the top of people's lists. There's a lot of political will here that can be mobilized and tapped if we can just get some leadership on this.
Right. Yeah. Amazing. Are there any champions for these causes in Congress?
Lyle Doggett out of Texas, Liz Warren, Jan Sachowski is good. There are bills out there that don't have a lot of traction or supporters. Yes, sorry. There are leaders, and the ideas are there. Everyone knows what the problem is, and the solutions are lying right in front of us.